Hello, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be looking ahead to round 4 of the Gallagher Premiership. Really interesting weekend of fixtures, some great games in there, but of course we've also got the situation with no Worcester in the league. That means their game against Gloucester is not happening. Wasps, as it happens, don't have a game this week, but they're in financial difficulties. So loads of things to get into, and it should be a really good round of matches with some, as I say, stellar games. If you're new here, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, please like the video, and most importantly, comment down below, give me your thoughts on how you see the games going this weekend. As I say, some brilliant games. Right, let's get into it. So let's start off on Friday night. I'm recording this on a Friday, so tonight's game, it's Newcastle against Bristol up in the northeast. Newcastle winless to start the season. They're struggling. You've got to give them their dues, though, in that they're one of the sides in the division that, as I understand it, they don't pay up to the salary cap, so they're not paying as much as some of the other teams. They have a smaller fan base, probably, and really, we could get into this in another time, but rugby in the north and in the northeast hasn't been helped over the past few years, whether it be RFU or Premiership Rugby or whoever it might be. So I really like Newcastle. I've often done games up there. I think it's a great place to go and cover matches. But them against Bristol, I think it is going to be tough for them. Small bits of team news. You look at the Newcastle side, Maroney and Orlando coming back into the centres. So that's going to give them a little bit of experience. And if you look at their opposite numbers, you've got Jack Bates and Pierce O'Connor for Bristol. Pierce O'Connor, very good. Jack Bates, bit more of a younger guy though, so I'll be interested to see how he goes at outside centre. Pierce O'Connor has shifted to inside centre. And I've said previously on this channel how I didn't expect too much of Bristol this season. They've gone 3 from 3 at the start. I've had to eat my words. They've started the season way better than I expected them to. I do think the fixture list has been relatively kind to them. Now, that's not their fault, but if you look at it, and they've played Bath, they've played Wasps, they've played London Irish. London Irish, you might have expected to be up there a bit, or possibly Wasps, but I wouldn't say any of those sides are kind of definite, nailed on. People think they're definitely going to be top 4. They might be top 6. So I think in terms of opposition, the fixture list has been kind to Bristol, but credit to them. They've gone out, they've delivered. They look a lot better than they did last season, and they've got the wins on the board as well, which I think is really important. I think starting the season well for them, building momentum was so crucial. In terms of a trip to the northeast, I'm going to give it to Bristol. I've got to. The way they've started the season, the way Newcastle have started the season, wouldn't be a complete shock, in my opinion, if Newcastle were able to get a result. They do, it is a tough place to go up to Kingston Park. So we'll wait and see. But for me, that's going to be a Bristol victory tonight as I'm recording. Let's get into the games over the weekend then. First of all, London Irish are hosting Bath on Saturday. Struggling Bath once again, a side who have been really poor over the last few years. They were absolutely terrible last year, and this season was supposed to be a new dawn. Johan van Graan coming in from Munster, a new chance for the team to start moving forward, and unfortunately it just hasn't happened to them. I think losing the opening game to Bristol is key, in the same way that I said it was important for Bristol to build momentum. That game could have gone over way, and Bristol have gone on to win their next couple of matches. Bath could have won that opening game. They were really close to winning it. They lost it, and since then they've lost their matches as well. So even though Bath traditionally have done well against London Irish, if we look back, I think 2013 to 2019, they didn't lose to them. This is a different time. This is a different era. This is a different Bath side now who look completely shot of confidence. They need a victory desperately. They're on the road. They may well get it, but I'm not sure. I still fear for Bath from what we've seen in the opening 3 rounds. Just from what we've seen last season coming into this year, it's a side that still doesn't look that confident. I don't think there's been that immediate impact of new coaches coming in either, which has got to be a little bit of a concern. So for me, London Irish against Bath, I'm going to give it to London Irish. Similar to the Newcastle-Bristol result, I wouldn't be completely shocked if Bath do get a result. You look at their team, they've got good players there, but just based upon what we've seen so far this season, I'm going to go for London Irish. All right, on to the next 2 games. These, for me, are going to be the 2 best games, certainly on paper at least. They're the 2 best games this weekend. Let's start up another game up in the north. Sale hosting Exeter. Over the last few years, before last season, 2 teams that were in the top 4, quite closely matched. Both of them dropped off last season, but both of them have started this year really well. undefeated so far. Admittedly, Sale had a bye week last weekend, but both of them haven't lost yet. And I just think it's such an intriguing matchup. If you look at it, Tom O'Flaherty and Johnny Hill, who were transferred to Sale, two of Sale's big signings, coming up against their former club. I think this is the sort of game where we can judge where these two teams are on the back of it. This is possibly their toughest test yet. I think Exeter have had a tough start to the season, but playing Harlequins and Leicester Tigers, both of those games came at home, so now they're on the road against good opposition. I think this will be a really good barometer for where Sale and for where Exeter are at this moment in time. They've both had good starts to the season. There's a lot of encouragement to be taken from that, but I think in terms of exactly where they are at this moment in time, this weekend will tell us a lot. And these games are often tight between the two. It's going to be incredibly physical. I'm really, really excited for that one. Final game on Saturday, a repeat of last year's final. It's Saracens hosting Leicester Tigers. A fascinating matchup for so many different reasons. If you want to look at team news, you got Anthony Watson starting for Leicester. He was one of their big signings, of course, joining from Bath. Andre Pollard is on the bench for the Tigers as well, so he could make his debut for them. Having lost George Ford, he's kind of their big signing at 10. So that's going to be absolutely fascinating. But then also the style of these two sides. Leicester last year, we know what we're going to get from them because we saw them last year when they won the Premiership, that hard, physical, kicking a lot, territory kind of game plan, which they were so effective at. And they beat Saracens in the final last year. And there's been a bit of a sense of Saracens trying to develop this season and play a slightly different brand. They've been trying to move it a little bit more, something that we were probably trying to do a bit last year as well. But I think specifically off the back of that final defeat, Saracens have acknowledged the fact that they need to maybe add a few more elements to their game to be able to beat Leicester. So who comes off better in this game is going to be really interesting to see. I've just realised as well I didn't give a prediction for Sale and Exeter, partly because it was probably a really hard game to predict. I am going to go for Sale. Exeter just beat Harlequins last week, didn't they? But I think following a restful week at home, I'll just give it to Sale Sharks. Back to Saracens and Tigers. Saracens have had a couple of quite narrow wins, some really, really exciting games against Quins and against Gloucester to start off their season. The fact that it's last season's final as well, coming up so quickly in the early weeks of the season, is really, really interesting. Tough start to the season for Saracens and for Leicester as well, it has to be said. But when it comes down to a prediction, I am going to give this to Leicester Tigers on the road. Could be wrong on that one, but I think on the road, Leicester might just get one over on them because I think Saracens are still developing their game. I think they're not the finished product quite yet in terms of the style that they're trying to play, where they're moving it a little bit more. So I'm going to give it to Tigers. Let's wait and see. There's so much to be interested in that game. Final game on Sunday, it's Harlequins against Northampton. And this game's also really interesting because I think Harlequins and Northampton are coming to this match in really similar positions. I mean, they both have the same record. They've won one game and lost two. They were both sides that made the top four last year, losing in the semi-finals. So they're two teams that many people would have expected to be up there again. Whichever one loses this game, presuming it's not a draw, all of a sudden you're looking at 3 defeats in their opening 4 games. That's a poor start to the season. It's a momentum killer. So from that point of view, I think it is a pretty big game for both of these sides. In terms of how I see it going, I'd give the edge to Harlequins. The fact they're at home, they're one of the best sides at the moment in terms of attendance, consistently selling out. The Stoops are really, really good atmosphere. It's quite a tough place to go. And with Northampton, I still have some question marks over them. With Phil Dowson, they've had a new coaching side. We know how good they can play and how the entertaining rugby that they can play when they get going. But yeah, I still maybe just have a few question marks over them so far this season, even though we have seen them play some good stuff. So I'm going to give it to Harlequins, but hey, let's throw it up in the air and see what sticks. I could be wrong. Remember, in terms of your own predictions, please drop a comment down below. How do you see these games going this weekend? But also any observations you might have made on how teams are playing and matchups or team selections, things like that you think is interesting for this coming weekend of fixtures. I'll try and do something either on Sunday or maybe early next week looking back on this round of fixtures. Until then, see you in the next one.